Welcome to my 2025 State of the Market report. This answers the question, what is going on in South Florida real estate? My name is David Siddons. I'm president of the David Siddons Group. Most importantly, I have been analyzing the real estate market for the last 15 years. I do not report with fluff, nonsense, or vague data. Everything that I do is extremely precise, well put together, and well researched. I work closely with the folks at FIU and University of Miami to make sure that what we put out is accurate. Most importantly, it will not read like a normal report. This will not look like any other real estate report that you might see from a brokerage house. What we do here is we've taken the 10 most important questions that you as a buyer or a seller would have about the market, and we answer it to help you make a better decision. Now, I hope you enjoy this podcast. I hope you get a lot from it. If you want more information, you can email me, or you can just see my information below and give me a call. Thank you. Now, let's get into it. Welcome back to the Better Decisions podcast. This is a unique episode. I don't have a guest in front of me. It's just me. But I'm going to give you what I think is the number one question that everyone asks me every single day. What's going on with the market? So let's dive into it. 10 key questions. Here's the first one. What has happened to the price values of properties over the last 6 months? Well, it's divided between condos and homes. When I look at the data, the strongest market by far is the $10 million plus market. It's doing very, very well. Primary product does better than secondary product. That's always the case. When markets soften, which is honestly what we've seen now for the last 6 months, the primary product will outperform. $10 million plus market right now shows a higher dollar per square foot. Really what that has to do with is because the product's actually got more expensive. There's better quality finished product. There's more expensive product. When we get into the lower the next level down, the 6 to 10 market is actually more indicative of what I would expect. The market gets softer. It's kind of flat, to be honest with you. Dollar per square foot hasn't really shifted. What does that mean? It means this. The product is still selling, and good product is still selling at a good dollar per square foot and is not dropping. We do not have enough inventory to suggest a big collapse in the market. But what we do have is patience, patient buyers waiting to find the right product. And that's why that market's relatively flat. The $3 to $6 million market for the housing market actually tends to go up. Why? Not because the values have gone up. I don't believe that. What I believe is it's gone up because, very simply, the product that people are buying is the new product. It's the better finished product. They will not buy the lower level or poor finished, big, ugly homes. They want newer, they want more polished, and the other stuff is just sitting on the market, which means that the dollar per square foot for that product, which is typically low, is not entering into the data. The data is predominantly the newer product, the nicer product that's actually selling. Everything else is being left behind. And that really reflects on inventory and the other data to follow. The lower level of the market, the 1 to 3, it's kind of flat too, dollar per square foot. It's not going up a lot. Why? Interest rates. Interest rates create bumps in markets. Interest rates have not come down. Through all of this, through everything that I'm going to say today in this podcast, what I'm finding is that despite the fact that the market's a little softer, we have to remember that we're dealing with 8% interest rates. Those are significantly higher. And if the market is still surviving in this mode, you have to think about what it's going to be like when those rates drop. The condo market, that's the next thing. A tale of two cities. Houses and condos behave very differently. Why? Because condos predominantly tend to be second home or third home product. Now, the condo market systematically looks to be pretty flat. The dollar per square foot is actually not doing an awful lot. But again, this would suggest that we are seeing a softening in the market. People are suggesting we're seeing a softening in the market. I think we're seeing some softening, mostly and clearly around the older product. The other product that's actually what I would call ultra luxury or high quality is not softening. But the buildings that are softening, I'm going to fire off some of the key ones, and then from there you can actually go in, read the article that goes with this. But to help you, for those who want to know what buildings I saw softening this year, here's a little list. Porsche Design, Muse Armani, Trump Royale, Oceana Key Biscayne, St. Regis Bal Harbour, Paraiso Bayview, Grove Grand Bay, 1000 Museum, Paramount, Epic, and Fiena. Those ones have seen a softening dollar per square foot, and a lot of that probably has to do with the fact that some of those units that sold were not really hitting the mark, or a lot of that product may have been second home product, especially around the Sunny Isles market. Let's go on to question number 2, and this is probably the big one in the room that actually has everyone's attention. What about inventory? Everyone's throwing around the comment that I see every single day where they're like, I see more expired listings and I see less sales going on, so I'm seeing inventory growing. The inventory for the $10 million plus market has actually dropped. It's gone from 36 months to 20 months. So if you're assuming that there's more inventory out there for ultra luxury product, you might be wrong. Getting into the lower price point, the $6 to $10 million range, yes, it's gone from 15 to 28 months. Inventory has absolutely increased in that area. And there are markets within Miami where I've seen a lot of it come in. When we get into the lower market, into the $3 to $6 million market, we move from 12 to 15 months supply. That's not terrible. It's not terrible. The challenge is that often people will look at the general market and think that's really, really bad. It's not terrible. The difference is the inventory that's growing, I believe, is the product that is the older product, the less desirable product. The lower level market, the 1 to 3 market, we still have really low levels of inventory. This is the thing, $1 to $3 million. The inventory is still, well, it's 10 months. It's still below. It's still very much a seller's market. But be careful, people. Just because it's a seller's market doesn't mean you can push boundaries. Buyers are nervous. They've got high interest rates. They've got uncertainty in the economy, and they are wary and they're cautious. They don't want to be overpaying. In fact, I would say this to every seller out there. Every seller know this. Buyers don't want to overpay. They're willing to match the market. They don't want to break records in the market. But buyers at the same time, let me tell you something. If the market's doing this right now with 8%, wait till the interest rates drop. You're going to get a bump. And me personally, I'd rather buy when rates are high than when they're low because I can always refinance. And I've said it before, marry the house, date the mortgage. So the condo market, the inventory in the condo market, right? 10 plus has gone from 40 months to 50 months. That is a significant decrease in the absorption rate of product. Into the lower level, the 6 to 10 range, we actually see an inventory surge of 39%, 23 months to 32 months. Know this, sellers, if you own a condo in the 6 to 10 range, be realistic. $3 to $6 million market, inventories creeped up a little bit from 23 months to 25 months. Again, this is the whole of the Miami market. It's going to vary from market to market. So if you want to get granular, and obviously you're not buying the whole index, you're going to buy one neighborhood, understanding each and every neighborhood. And the 1 to 3 market's actually gone from 13 months to 20 months. Right? Why? Very interest rate dependent. Very interest rate dependent buyers who really need to make sure that they can buy at a number that makes sense. And a lot of the product that I see in Miami in the 1 to 3 range is honestly investment class product. Investment class product will live and die by the rental market. The direct value of the income that you're getting from rent will ultimately determine the value of that asset. Because if it rents high, it should sell high because the returns are high. But when the rental rate numbers drop, which they have been doing, which we'll get into, then the value of the asset goes down. And that's when you have to appreciate your next buyer is not going to buy it unless their return on capital is good. And cash is king right now. Question number 3, is it a buyer's market or a seller's market right now? And is that shifting? It's split. When you get into the top market, the $10 million plus market for homes, I will tell you this. Data tells us that the $10 million plus market, although it's been strong, it's shifting towards a seller's market. Faster sales, less negotiations at the high end for really good product. What I've noticed though, I do see a lot of sellers who are aspirational still. They're not real sellers, they're make me move sellers. So I do see quite a good number of extremely high price product that is absolutely not justifiable in any way to anyone for any reason. Once we go into the 6 to 10 mark, it's clearly a buyer's market. It is. The buyer's market, especially the home market, is still very much in the buyer's favor. You do have negotiating power. If a seller isn't willing to talk to you, walk away. There'll be another product. If you can't find it, give me a call. I go off market all the time. How is the market right now for the $1 to $3 million market for those who are looking at the condo in 1 to 3? Well, there's signs of softening demand. Increased inventory continues to be a major issue. I've actually seen the condo market rise for the last, inventory's been rising for the last couple of years in a lot of the condo market areas. Brickell, Downtown and Edgewater being a good example. The message here is, if you want to sell your condo, please be aggressive. If you really want to sell. If you don't, you just want to test it, fine. But if you actually are a real seller, you really need to get aggressive and understand that this market right now is dealing with nervous buyers who are dealing with high interest rates. I keep saying it again and again and again, but it's the big force at play within our market. Point number 4, how quickly are properties selling compared to last year? What are the days on the market? How much time do I have to spend with my property for sale before I can expect to sell it? Well, it's all price dependent. But what the market tells us right now is that there's still a lot of overpriced product. There's still a lot of sellers who are not pricing their product correctly, or they're not being advised to price their product correctly. Why? Because ultimately, days on the market is growing. If you look at the $10 million plus range, it's the only market where we actually see days on the market shrink. Here's an interesting statistic. If we look at days on the market for the home market, it's actually dropped from 219 days on the market to 127. I would actually tell you that the product that has the most days on the market is, or the weakest market, if you want to call it that right now, is not the 1 to 3. It is, in fact, the 6 to 10. If you want to take one thing away from this report, understand that the strongest market is the 10 plus. The weakest market is the 6 to 10. The next weakest market is the 3 to 6, which is 3 to 6 million, of course. And then the next market to that, which is probably the second best market, if you want to call it the second best market, is the 1 to 3. But the only market that I would actually say is actually doing relatively well is the $10 million plus market. The rest of the market's not having its best 2 quarters that I've seen for quite a few years. But inventory for the condo market has gone up 70% in the $6 to $10 million range. In the housing market, in the 6 to 10 million range, it's gone from 110 to 153. Right? 153 isn't terrible. It's not like it has been in the past, end of the world scenario, but it still represents nearly a 40% increase on days on the market. 3 to 6 has gone from pretty much 100 to 120. That's a 20% increase on days on the market. And the 1 to 3 in the housing market's gone from 55 to 68. Next point, number 5. This is the next question. How aligned are list prices with what's actually selling? Well, we're actually seeing if you look at the data above, and to answer this question, I have seen more increased reductions in the price of product. We are seeing more reductions. We are seeing more drops of asking price. The ultra luxury segment, the same thing applies. The ultra luxury segment is seeing a clear resurgence with robust demand, faster sales, and less compromise. It's the most improved and most competitive market. The market below that, and again, I'm talking about houses. The market below that, many homes are sitting over 5 months on the market. Deeper discounts show sellers' pressure. These discounts, these homes are getting discounted because seller pressure is mounting. A lot of these listings that we saw started on the market at the beginning of the year. Buyers were a little bit more positive. And then sellers were a little bit more positive, and then April happened, and I think we should address in this report April the 8th. Let's just go ahead and say it. April the 8th, we saw an announcement where we understood that tariffs were going to be increased significantly. Then they weren't. But the fallout from that effect was a big drop in the stock market. And psychologically, it damaged a lot of people. It made a lot of people nervous. And that meant a lot more buyers were saying, what might happen next? If inventory is growing, why don't I just wait and see what happens? Well, they have. But I'll also tell you something else that's happened. I've seen a number of houses, and I've dealt with a number of houses that have in fact sold. And then the buyers have circled back around again and say, oh, I'm still interested in that house. And we've said, well, guess what? It's sold. And they're like, but I wanted that. I love that house. I wanted that house. And I'm like, well, sorry, now you lost it. That will happen, and that will happen again and again and again, and it happens in every market. And when the markets go down, there's always a good percentage of buyers who are convinced that the sky is going to fall and everything should be massively discounted. It's not going to happen. There's a product that will get discounted according to the right market value, but no one's going to absolutely slash the prices. So those people who have been sitting on the fence, renting for a year, renting for 2 years, I'm sorry, people, but you are missing the boat, and you'll probably always miss the boat. And those are the hard facts, the ugly truth of that situation. But when we look at the general confidence in the market, and we're looking at the increased price reductions, longer listing periods, I think we're now seeing a number of sellers come in line with the market. And I think over the summer, this is my prediction, over the summer, you're going to see a lot of really good deals to grab. And I think that might be a time that if you want to get a deal, that's the time, because I think product is going to be in a situation where everyone's away. A lot of people are away. A lot of people are like not thinking about selling. Sellers are still under pressure, and they're going to start making reductions and compromises. And I will say this, there's a lot of sellers as well who quite honestly don't want to reduce because they don't want to give the market the wrong signal. But if you call their agents, or if you want to work with us, and we will call their agents, you will find that there's much bigger margins of negotiation than you may have thought. Typically, when I list a home, I'm looking to go between 5% of my asking price. That's really the honest truth of where I price and how I price my product. And the rest of the market, the price reductions, you're going to see that continue. Getting into the condo market, price reductions on the condo market. I'm actually seeing a surge in expired listings. There's a big surge on expired listings happening. Even in the luxury condo market over $10 million, we saw a surge of 80% increase in the expired listings from last year. Out in the upper areas of 6 to 10, I've seen expired listings increase by 27%. In the lower areas, we see a little, increase of expired listings, but not a dramatic amount. In the housing market, again, we see a slight tick up of expired listings. But the $10 million plus expired listings, the reason I see so many in that market is why? Because there are sellers out there in that $10 million plus market, both homes and condos, that they're not real sellers. They just want unrealistic, crazy numbers because they see some staggering sales that are record breaking and they think, maybe I get to be one of those people too. What types of properties are moving fastest and which are stagnant? I'm going to make this real short and sweet. The property that moves really, really well is custom product. High level, well finished custom product. Whether it's a home or a condo, that moves well. Secondarily, and these are the natural rules of real estate, primary product moves much better than secondary product. When people need a home that's unique, that they're going to live in, that's going to be their primary resident, that product is moving fastest. That does best. Guess what doesn't move well? Generic, cheap, poorly finished, or old product. That's what stagnates. Not a surprise. Not a surprise to anyone. But again, go into the report, look at the statistics, and there is an increasing number of old buildings that are stagnating. They're clogging up the pipeline. But you know what? That's where the media jumps on it. I've seen and done this for so long that I see so many videos come out online where I see someone reviewing South Florida real estate or Miami, and they say, let me reference the amount of foreclosures and crash that's going to happen and look at the number of inventory growing, and guess where it sits? Very, very, very cheap product, or very, very old product, or product that's in a really undesirable location, right? It's the same story. And of course, I get it. They produce this. It's interesting. It's clickbait. Stop watching clickbait, right? It's not going to help you. If you start taking clickbait information and acting on it to make the biggest economic decision of your life, then it's on you, right? If you actually want to make good calculated decisions, number one, make sure it's good quality data that revolves around what you're buying. Number two, get granular. Point number 8, how is the rental market performing and what does this signal? Well, you know what? The rental market is actually doing pretty well in the upper end and the middle end, but not the low end. Why? Well, I'll tell you why. Here's my theory. The upper end of the market has seen a lot more buyers circling, waiting for a deal. But while they're waiting for a deal, they're renting. Because here's the thing. These people aren't going anywhere. They're not leaving. There's no Miami exodus. There's no big drive out of town. It's still the best place to live. So the population's not shrinking. People aren't leaving. All those articles that you read about people migrating and leaving town because Miami isn't this or that, it's not accurate. Please speak to my friend at Eli Braha at FIU. Speak to my friends at University of Miami. Speak to all the experts that sit behind me. All of it says that Miami is still the place that people want to migrate to. It's still the number one city choice in America. And that means that if they're not buying, then they have to live somewhere, and they're not living under a bridge or in a caravan, are they? They're renting. And that's why the rental market actually is doing really, really well. And actually the upper end, the $10 million plus, it's, a $10 million plus buyer is not going out there spending $100,000 on $150,000 on renting a home. Why? Because they're smart. They got wealthy because they knew what they were doing. The market that really is renting heavily, that we're seeing more of in the rental market, is the 3 to 6 and the 6 to 10. So that's the rental market for homes between $15,000 and $35,000. That's probably a really good estimation of it. And in the condo market, if you actually look at the condo market, interestingly enough, so going through the rental market, if we actually break it down, the price point in homes, $5,000 to $15,000 a month is stable. $15,000 to $30,000 a month is okay, a little sluggish. 30 plus, booming. Because buyers of $6 to $10 million homes are renting instead of buying in a number of cases. And the reason they're renting is because they can't find the custom home or the high-level product that they want because it's either not available or it's selling at a premium that they're not willing to pay, but they should because they're not going to find a replacement for it. And then obviously the extreme end, those buyers don't care. They don't care to rent because they got more money than God. The condo market, the $10 million plus condo market is actually seeing a high demand for ultra luxury rentals. It's actually got some pretty steady growth. The 6 to 10 rentals in this segment are more price sensitive and prices decreasing slightly. But the market that really I see some more cooling is that mid to low range. Why? And I think this has to do with the fact that inflation may be eating into a lot of paychecks. It's eating into paychecks. People don't want to pay as much on the rent. In that 5 to 10 range, you see a lot of those people in Brickell who now are a little bit more cautious. And that actually does have then an impact on the condo market because when those condo owners are trying to sell, those condo buyers are looking at what they're renting for and they're saying, you know what, this isn't a very good return on investment. Bearing in mind that there are markets that have 80% of the product is actually rented. It's not being lived in as a primary resident. So you've got to live and die by those rules. But I think it's interesting to see how this is playing out. I think also interest rates. When interest rates drop, buyers simply cannot afford, a number of buyers in the 1 to 3 range simply cannot afford to buy with higher rates. That's what they tell themselves. But I actually think in many cases that's the wrong way to look at this because when rates drop, the prices are going to spike. Question number 9, what buyer profiles are most active and where do they come from? My experience right now is I still have buyers coming from New York and California. This is still a large buying profile that I see. And sometimes they are coming direct. Yes, they're flying in to come and see the product. But I'm also seeing people who are actually already here. They may have been renting for a couple of years and now they're looking to buy. But I definitely see that profile. Now, obviously, admittedly, I'm dealing with a lot of product that's on the mainland, Coconut Grove, Coral Gables, Pinecrest, those kind of markets. But if I reflect on other markets and where our deals are coming from, it's still what I call migratory buyers, migration from other states. And obviously at the very, very upper end, I am actually seeing also a migration coming from other places like Europe. I have a rather surprising number of European buyers who have been coming in to buy. And that really colludes to the fact that I think that when you see the exchange rates, always look at exchange rates when you're trying to understand markets because buyers, Miami is a global city, right? It's not just a local city, but people move from all over the world to move to Miami, and that's very, very apparent. It's why Miami is on the global index. It's why it's considered one of the most desirable cities in America, if not the most desirable city in America today. And so we have buyers wanting the opportunity to move here. And I get calls every day from Argentina, from Brazil, from England, from France, from Germany. Of course, I get it from New York and California and other states as well. But I think it's, the people moving in. A smaller number of local buyers, but the local market is still, I would say, something to be aware of. Why do I give this as a point to my report? Because it's not really a data point. It's more of a human behavioral point. I say this because very likely if you're watching this, you might be a seller, right? And if you're a seller, you want to know that where you're marketing to is the right audience. You can reach the right people. So we geo-target and we get very specific. Again, I'm talking about the whole of Miami here, so I can't really get granular about where everyone's automatically coming into Miami from, or Fort Lauderdale, or Palm Beach, because we do those market reports, and this report will include some of those other areas as well. But if you want that information, go into our individual reports, and my territory managers will talk about where those buyers are coming from. We are very fortunate that we have just a gigantic database, 771,000 people on retargeting, 53,000 people local, constantly active on the system. And that allows us to read a market really, really well. We're tracking people coming into the website. We have the IP addresses, and we're using all the softwares, including AI, which we did a podcast on recently, to understand where our audience is coming from. Because if you want to sell your product, know who's going to buy it. The final point, and point number 10. How does this market compare to nearby competing neighborhoods, right? This is a general question, and this doesn't really work for this particular report because it's talking about the Miami market in general. But each neighborhood is behaving differently. You must understand that nothing sells in a bubble. Markets affect each other. It's all part of the beautiful network that makes up the great analysis of the Miami real estate market. I hope you've enjoyed this, what I would call brief, 10 key point questioned report. The data goes with this. I do not find it helpful to throw lots and lots of data at all my clients without any explanation. This is explaining what's happening in the market and why. The conclusions from everything, if you only take this last 10 seconds away from this entire report, the market is typically not as strong as it was last year. But the ultra luxury market it's stronger, and it's a sign of things to come. But in fact, of everything going on, even though we have 8% interest rates, it's not a disaster. But the product tells a tale of two cities. And it's important to know which camp you exist in. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed this podcast, and stay tuned for another episode coming soon.